Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. 5 most important breakout players for this Oklahoma program heading into 2024. And Dill, these are some of my favorite episodes to do personally, where we've talked extensively about this Oklahoma program, talked about guys like Jackson Arnold, Deion Burks. Now we have the opportunity to kind of dig into some breakout candidates for this Oklahoma program, but specifically kind of answering the question of if this Oklahoma team, reaches their potential in 2024, I think these 5 players that we are going to talk about are probably breakout performers for this Oklahoma program. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys, to the Oklahoma fans. And it's no secret, we love talking this program. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, I would love for the Oklahoma fans to call their shots in the comment section as well. Think about players that you think are massive breakout candidates for this Oklahoma program. Throw them in the comment section. We'll chop it up. We always learn a ton from you guys. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with my guy, and that is Dasan McCullough. And I've loved him ever since he was a true freshman at Indiana in 2022. And I think the key for Dasan McCullough is, one, staying healthy. And from what you heard in the offseason, he certainly wasn't 100% for most of that season in 2023. But I think more importantly for Dasan is, how are you going to use him in this Oklahoma defense? He's a guy that can do a lot of different things within this Oklahoma defense. I think when I look back at that freshman season for him at Indiana, he thrived around the tackle box, played over 300 snaps on the line of scrimmage, coming off the edge. This is a guy that, yes, he can play that cheetah role. I think that's a very intriguing spot for him in this Oklahoma defense. But all the conversation about him potentially moving to that will linebacker spot, maybe having the opportunity to operate in the tackle box a little bit more, get after the passer, that's probably where he's at his best. And I think going into year 2 within this Oklahoma program, I think the coaching staff probably has a little bit better of an idea of how to use Dasan McCullough to his best of his ability. This is a guy that, you talk about upside, physical traits, one of the most talented players on this Oklahoma defense. And if he can break out as kind of just that impact box defender, that's massive in terms of what Brent Venables wants to do on the defensive side of the football.
And I also think, frankly, when you look at Oklahoma's personnel, they have plenty of guys who I think might even be a little bit more suited to play that cheetah role.
Yeah.
Because you have so many really good safeties who are versatile. I mean, you probably have 4 guys you'd be really, really comfortable, if not more, starting at that safety spot. So again, trying to get guys like Dolby and Spears Jennings and Bowen on the field. I think well, those guys they're good physical guys in the run, but add a little bit more in the pass coverage game, which, again, if we kind of look at what Oklahoma maybe struggled with at times, it was controlling that middle of the field in those passing situations. So again, you add Dasan McCullough back into the box where, again, he's probably played his best football, but I think it also gives you a little bit more flexibility to put some guys in the field who can play a little bit better in the middle of the field.
And what I look at with Dasan McCullough and say, he doesn't necessarily have to be an every down player for Oklahoma, but are there certain opportunities where you can get him on the football field, put him in that perfect spot to impact a football game? Again, you talk about the juice coming off the edge. This is a guy that can absolutely get to work, attacking tackles on that outside shoulder. I think it has a lot to do with, one, staying healthy, but more importantly, how do you want to use just this kind of physical specimen on the defensive side of the football? Next position up, and Dill, a position that was just kind of downright bad for Oklahoma last year, that was the tight end spot. You just didn't have any playmaking ability with a guy like Austin Stogner. You look at Jackson Arnold trying to ease his way into this Oklahoma offense in the SEC. If you can find a tight end that can emerge as just a difference maker in this Oklahoma offense, that's huge. Now, I went with Bauer Sharp coming from Southeast Louisiana. Dill, this is a freak show of an athlete. You read the spring practice notes, and he is one of the more talented players on the offensive side of the football for Oklahoma. If there's some Oklahoma fans that want to go with Devon Mitchell, I certainly wouldn't argue that's another specimen in that tight end room. But I look at Bauer Sharp and say, what he can do after the catch, what he can do from an athleticism standpoint in the pass catching game, this could be a massive, massive improvement from what you saw from this Oklahoma offense in the 2023 year.
Yeah, that was such a down position, especially from the year before where they got really, really good play back there. So again, you kind of saw how different it was when Stogner's just like a very average college football tight end, I feel like at the end of the day. And you just didn't have that playmaking ability from that spot. I think again, you're starting to recruit that position a little different, and then you add in Bauer Sharp to hopefully be that bridge guy. I think he needs to have a huge year because I'm with you. I think just the way they're able to open up space in the middle of the field with using their outside boundary guys who are really, really good, I think it should give a tight end a really good chance to work and be effective. And
phenomenal point. You look at all the talent that Oklahoma has in the wide receiver room, and those are wide receivers that safeties need to respect. And what does that mean? Like that middle of the field is going to be largely vacant. And I think a massive opportunity for whether it's Bauer Sharp, whether it's Jake Roberts, Devon Mitchell as a true freshman to kind of step in and have a chance to be extremely productive at that tight end position. Last position on the offensive side of the football. And Bill, this is going to be a 2-for-1, just a way for me to incorporate two players that I want to talk about, Jacob Sexton, and I'm going to add Jake Taylor into that too. These are two guys that are going into year 3 within this Oklahoma program. I think the biggest question mark that we have about Oklahoma right now heading into the SEC has to do with the offensive line. Can you keep Jackson Arnold protected? Can you give him a run game to work with? You go to the transfer portal and add some veteran guys that have played a lot of football, right? Spencer Brown, Michael Tarquin. It sounds like coming out of spring camp, you are looking at Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor as your starting tackles. If those guys can emerge as really quality SEC offensive tackles, my thought process on this Oklahoma team heading into 2024 is significantly changed.
Yeah, Jacob Sexton is an interesting one because I thought last year you didn't see the polish as a pass protector last year. I thought, again, you see the athleticism, the size, the length, the traits you want to see, but a little bit of sloppiness with the footwork, just a inexperienced young tackle and playing what you kind of expect from that type of guy. But again, has certainly the potential to do it. And when you saw him get to work in the run game, that's where he really shined. Very powerful run blocker, very effective in that world. So again, he can. I think his floor is to be a really good guard, but I think for what you kind of said with Oklahoma, you really want to see him emerge into a tackle, just given that, again, Tarquin, Brown, guys have played okay football at times in their college career. But if you're going to get your best 5 out there, I think Jacob Sexton, if he can play really high-level left tackle, I think that's huge for Oklahoma.
And I kind of like how this Oakland, I think this was the thought process for Brent Venables and Coach Bill B was, hey, let's go grab some tackles that we know give us a good floor, right? Spencer Brown, Michael Tarquin, they're not going to be liabilities at the offensive tackle spot. They're not going to be all SEC conference caliber tackles either, but they're not going to be liabilities. And if Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor beat those players out, then you feel pretty good about what they're going to be in 2024. And I think for Oklahoma fans, what you're most fired up about is it sounds like Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor beat out Spencer Brown and Michael Tarquin for the starting tackle spots. And that means massive things, I think, for this Oklahoma, because you look at the inside of the Oklahoma offensive line and say, yeah, Branson Hickman, you guys know how I feel about Everett. Fabici Nuawu coming over from North Texas. I like what they have on the inside. I think our question marks are at the tackle position. It sounds like Jacob Sexton, Jake Taylor are going to be those guys.
And if you had to kick Jacob Sexton down into the guard spot, there was going to be that feeling that you were going to waste a really, really good interior offensive lineman sitting the bench. Because you kind of look with some of the portal additions, with some of their young guys coming up, I think you're really, really comfortable with that inside spot. So again, if Sexton takes up one of those roles, it's just about when you think getting your best 5 out there. I don't think you're doing that if Sexton's playing.
100% the best 5 starting Oklahoma offensive linemen, it's with Jacob Sexton at the tackle spot. 100% agree with that. Going over to the defensive side of the football, let's talk about some edge rushers. And let's first talk about PJ Adebawore, a guy that we absolutely love coming out of high school and quite frankly played better than I would have thought he was going to play as a true freshman. I mean, this kid came into Oklahoma as a true freshman saying, hey, rare traits, probably needs a year or 2 within this program. I thought he was a pleasant surprise in terms of how he played as a true freshman. If you get that year 2 jump, the year where we really expected PJ Adebawore to be a force, That's massive for Oklahoma. And why I decided to go with PJ, you could throw in R. Mason Thomas into this conversation as well. The Oklahoma sacked the quarterback 4.6% of dropbacks. That was 111th in the country. That is not the Brent Venables defense that I think a lot of Oklahoma fans want to see. And I think a lot of that has to do with having those elite edge rushers that can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback in those third and long situations. You look at PJ Adebawore, you look at R. Mason Thomas, two guys who were freak shows coming out of high school, but you kind of knew they needed that development. If they hit in 2024, if they've kind of reached their potential or on their way to reaching their potential, I think you're looking at, to go along with Caden Willard or Ethan Downs, this Oklahoma pass rush at the edge position could be massively improved from what we saw in 2023.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up Willard, because I think we all like to talk about R. Mason Thomas and PJ.
Dude.
Again, PJ, that 5-star, that's just a difference maker. R. Mason Thomas, you've seen the flashes for the past couple of years. But Caden Willard, I mean, he really did it at a high level. Again, in the MAC, but again, you see, I think, the translatable traits, the length, the strength, some of those things you want to see. But I think you're right. At the end of the day, you need to get – you don't need – like, they had good edge play last year, but they didn't have great pass rushing edge play. Like, Ethan Downs and Rondell Bothroyd are really good at what they do, really, really tough against the run and disruptive players, but they were never going to stuff the stat sheet with the sack numbers because they're not – like those ultra smooth athletes that PJ and R. Mason Thomas and Caden Willard are. So I think someone on that edge position, I think, again, they're going to have good opportunities because you still need to deal with the interior defensive line. Like, they have really good players around them. So I think a really good edge rusher sliding into this position should be able to feast a little bit, frankly.
And you look at like the recipe for Oklahoma to be dominant on defense, really take that step in 2024. It's all right, we're going to stop the run on first and second down. I have a lot of confidence that Oklahoma can stop the run on first and second down, right? Dominic Williams, DeJoun Terry, I think two of the best run-stopping interior defensive linemen that you see in the country. Then you got Danny Stutzman playing behind him. That is a very, very good combination to have. And then if we can get these teams in the third and longs, PJ Adebawore, R. Mason Thomas emerge as those elite, like Ferrari pass rushers off the edge, man, that's the recipe for this Oklahoma defense. Last player I want to talk about, going to go to the back end. Though we talked about Zach Alley, and one of the Oklahoma listeners said, all right, Zach Alley coaches the linebackers for Oklahoma. Although that's true, I do want to expand on what we meant in terms of why we're so excited about the safeties with Zach Alley. You go back to what Zach Alley did at Jack State last year, extremely aggressive with the safety play, putting these safeties in positions to really make game-changing plays. And you look at Oklahoma in the safety department and say that might be one of the better rooms that you see in the country. We know what Billy Bowman can do in terms of taking the football away. I think you have another guy in Peyton Bowen who can be kind of that guy as well. And what stands out to me about Peyton Bowen, how we talked about him coming out of high school, was a freak show in terms of not only the athletic traits. There's a reason he was a top 100 national prospect. More importantly, like what's between the ears, the instincts that he has to find the football. That's what's extremely impressive. Oklahoma did a really nice job creating turnovers last year in the secondary. If Peyton Bowen can emerge as another just ball hawking safety next to Billy Bowman, that's the recipe again for why Oklahoma kind of takes that step in 2024.
Yeah, again, just to follow on the Zach Alley talk, it's like you saw how impactful his safeties were at Jack State. You saw how impactful they were. You go to that South Carolina game even, where obviously they're overmatched talent-wise, but you saw the footprint that his safeties had on the field, saw how much more difficult it was to throw in through the middle than it was at Oklahoma last year. So, again, yeah, you just think that he's going to be able to put these guys in a better spot to kind of be the main guys in this defense, if you will, the guys who are their footprints on every part of this defense. And again, I think that's kind of where you want to be because I love the safety room. I think they have 4 really, really good ones. Peyton Bowen has that like ultra high ceiling, obviously. So you'd love to see him if in a world where you can get him impacting the game constantly. I think that's a huge part of Oklahoma being really good.
All right, Dale, we're going off-roading here and just throwing another name. One, I want to preface, we're not talking about Jackson Arnold because I think he's a really obvious answer. We've talked to a lot of Jackson Arnold over the last couple months. Let's talk about the other linebacker spot, right? There's a lot of buzz around Deshaun McCullough potentially kicking into that will linebacker spot. You know, you have, in my mind, the best linebacker in the country, Danny Stutzman. I think one of the big question is who's going to be the linebacker too? Who's going to be Danny Stutzman's running mate? Dill, this could be a phenomenal unit for Oklahoma, right? Whether it's Kip Lewis, whether it's Kobe McKenzie, whether it's a guy like Lewis Carter, there are so many talented names. Jaron Kanik you could throw in there as well. I think that's a massive storyline because, again, you know what you have with Danny Stutzman, no questions asked, but that linebacker 2 spot probably left a little bit to be desired in 2023, but could be another aspect of this Oklahoma defense that takes a massive step in the right direction in 2024.
All really, really young guys. So obviously last year, it didn't really feel like they got one guy who really got in a groove and kind of emerged. Kanik probably played the most, obviously, but I don't think anyone from Oklahoma would have said that was a dominant year or anything.
Yeah.
Like you kind of thought he was shaping up to be a Stutzman or something. I think they're going to have a really competitive 4-way battle or 3-way battle, I should say, possibly 4-way. We'll see what they do. So it's like you just have a really competitive battle and I don't even want to put a necessarily breakout guy because I don't know who's going to win. I thought you saw really good things from, frankly, Kip Lewis, McKenzie, and even Kanik at times. So it's going to be an interesting battle, but I think you want to see that position play at a much higher level.
And at the end of the day, you kind of trust that someone's gonna emerge. You're talking about some really, really good young linebackers. That's how you want your linebacker room to look, like a bunch of competition between a lot of really good players, and whoever kind of earns that spot in fall camp, you feel damn good about what they're going to be for this Oklahoma team in 2024. Dill, that'll do it. Left a lot of, I wanted to talk about some wide receivers, guys like Jaquez Petaway. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.